Thank you for having me back, Tiffany, for a third time. I appreciate it. I love coming out here every single time. You're such a highly engaged group. I'm not just trying to suck up. I'm a member of the Guelph Home Builders Association, the Waterloo Home Builders Association, Ontario Home Builders Association, and I have not seen a local that dedicates as much time and effort to development of their young professionals. So you should be very happy to be in this association. So hats off to the team at BILD. On that note, I'm applying for a job at BILD. Kidding. There's two really exciting things happening in my life that I'd like to share with you guys before I start. And today I just want to share some stories. For those of you who've heard me speak before, I'm usually very functionally driven around leadership development and give you tools and talk about PDSs and one-on-ones and engagement. And today I'm just going to tell a little bit about my story that may resonate with you, that may help you grow your career. And the consistent behaviors that I've learned over the years and wasn't always great at the beginning, but luckily I had some people along the way that invested in me. So I want to share that with you today. So it's going to be mostly a little bit of storytelling today. But before I start, there's two amazingly huge things happening in my life right now. One is this. Okay, so for those of you who've seen me speak before, the mark-a-pede was not normally on my lip. Second, last night I discovered potentially the greatest thing in my life. Does anyone here have Bell 5 TV? Okay, I went on for the Santa tracker for my kids. There is a thing called Christmas karaoke. You're not as all moved as I am? It is the greatest. As a dad with 4 kids who can't sing, this is going to be one heck of a holiday season. So thought I'd share that to start, that I'm pretty excited. If at the end of this you liked how it went, the only thing I believe in a thing called business philanthropy. And I do these sessions in home builder associations. I do them at local universities. And I never accept a speaker's fee. Because first of all, no one has that amount of money. Secondly, it's just important to give back because I've been lucky to have great leaders in my life. And I think it's really important to share those stories with other people. But if you do like what you see today, I have a Movember page. Google my name, Movember, you'll find it. Donate if you can. And if you don't like what I did today, still go to my Movember page and donate if you can. So today I'm going to share a few stories, share a few videos, and talk to you a little bit about my career to date and where that may help you. Sorry, I should probably use this, right? Yeah. Is it just me? Oh, actually press the button. Great, thank you. So, why do I do what I do? Top left. So I'm going to tell you a couple stories to start. And if I cry, forgive me, because I haven't been able to do it yet. But I'm going to try today. I've done this probably 10 times, and I'm getting better. So top left-hand corner, the reason I do what I do from a leadership perspective and doing things like today are those 4 lovely kids. Those are my children. I have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. The 2-year-old, his name is Bennett. And if you get a chance to read some boring blogs, you can find me on LinkedIn, and the story of Bennett is there. And the reason Bennett's important to share today is Bennett's about fighting. Bennett's about trusting other people. Bennett's about being perfectly trained at what you do and being an awesome leader that has your team ready for that moment when they have to perform. The redhead that you can't tell is redhead, who's the little guy in the middle, is Griffin. Griffin was born long pregnancy for my wife. Well, for me too, I guess, but for my wife, she went through all of the pain. I tried to support her the best I could. It was about 32 hours. Came in 7 pounds, 7 ounces. Other than it being long, pretty easy, says the husband who didn't have to deliver. Bennett was different. Bennett started to come through real fast, like real fast. Boy, we're in labor. The midwife's like, we got to go. We get to the hospital. Mom's pushing. Everything's going great. Bennett's stuck. Bennett's been in the birth canal for a little too long. There's a certain amount of time you can be in there to where it becomes very risky for your life and for mom. So I can sense this building in the room. I can feel the tension, and then all of a sudden, someone in the room yells, "Code Pink." Does anyone know what a code pink is? Yeah? Who said yes? What's a code pink?
It's when they're not breathing properly and everybody rushes into the delivery room.
Exactly. Here, take the clicker. You can tell us. No, I'm just teasing. It's like a code blue for adults. It's code pink for kids. It's breathing, heart, emergency. And so all of a sudden, we go from 2 midwives to about 12 people in the room, and they pull Dad out of the room. And my mother-in-law was, see, pull me out of the room, and I can hear my wife. It's not pleasant, and I can feel that sense of something's going bad here. Now, this is where the story gets positive. This woman from the hospital pulls me aside and tells me very transparently what's going on. The code pink you heard is your child's in distress. It's risky for the child and it's risky for your wife. Please know that we're all trained to do this, and he's in the best care possible. Okay, Dad has a choice. Lose his head and get in there and suddenly learn how to deliver a baby, or trust the professional. So they take care of me. I can hear in the room the efforts they're going through to get baby out. They get baby out, put Bennett on a table, rush me back into my wife's side, which was leadership 101. That person in that hospital knew what the customer and the patient needed to get through this situation with them. They had been trained to do that. Then the RMTs, and I wish it was registered massage therapist, but it was resuscitation therapist, went to work on Bennett. He didn't breathe for 50 seconds. I sat beside my wife's head. We just hoped. But yet there was this sense of calm through all that chaos that we were in good hands. And then Bennett let out the greatest cry I'd heard in my life. They whipped me off to intensive with him and took her into another room, and I got to hold his hand for the first 3 hours of his life. Sorry. I should probably start cutting out this story. And him and I have had a bond unlike any of my children, because I really feel like he remembers that. The moral of the story is, which I'm going to share today, is to be successful in your career, it's 50-50. You need to work for a great leader who's invested in developing you. If you don't have that, you need to challenge that. And if you can't, you own that situation. If you continue to put up with it, it's because you decide to. But you've got to try and make it work first. On the other side, as you grow your career, you owe your customer that environment. And you owe the people who work with you the development so they can have the skill to deliver that experience. Okay? So that's the story of Bennett and how it's going to tie into today. This is probably one of my more fun presentations because I just get to tell you some stories from my life that hopefully are relevant when we're done, and I'll try and wrap it all up. But he's one of the reasons I do what I do with my other children and my wife, of course. And the other piece in is, why not you? How is a guy who was born in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, to a military dad, grew up in Quebec, didn't graduate from university. If there's any recruiters in the room, I graduated from university, top of my class. Thank you, camera. Didn't graduate from university. First working experience was at McDonald's flipping burgers, which to this day is the best place I've ever been trained in my entire career. For any of you who worked at McDonald's, put up your hands. Right? Right? To train you on how to hold the spatula at a certain degree time after time to make sure the burger's cooked the same way. And I know they probably don't use spatulas anymore. They just stick it in some type of oven, but those were my days. That is the investment. As I've gone through that career, worked at McDonald's, grown. I've only grown to where I've at because I've had opportunity and great leaders. And even bad ones too. So if you're working for a bad leader right now, none of you are working for a bad leader. Who's working for a bad leader right now? Put up your hand. I'm just teasing. Don't put up your damn hand. He's watching. She's watching. Don't do it. No, I'm just teasing. If you're working for a bad leader, I learned a lot from a really bad leader. I learned what I was... Did someone say she's here? We'll let you two work it out a little later over lunch. I can give you some one-on-one counseling. We'll figure it out. But I've learned a lot from bad leaders as well. And so as I've gone through that career, I do things like this. I invest in my team because I've been lucky enough to have people do that. So if I can do it, why can't you? And my journey hasn't ended. I'm a vice president, as Tiffany was selling, as a growing home builder. but there's a lot more runway for me. So how did I get to where I'm at? Well, do you want the drunken university stories, or should I just, yeah. No, I won't share the drunken university stories or the midlife crises and all those types of things, but I will talk to you about my foundation, and this will be the only other time that I might get emotional, and we'll move on to some happy, funny videos, and everything will be great. My mom and my dad. So my dad is a military man, discipline, process, feedback when you're off track. Big, huge heart displayed in a different way. So that need to be disciplined, have a process, and set people up for success comes from dad. Mom, life of the party. Raised 5 boys. I'm the youngest of 5. So I was spoiled. It was awesome. That picture you see in the top left was the last time I saw my mother. It was at my wedding. And it was the last time I danced with her in my life. And as I go through my career and I realize, why in the heck do I invest so much time when I've seen other leaders be successful by being jerks? Like, there's an easier way to leadership. KPIs, measurement, don't get the job done, I find someone else. Have any of you worked for a leader like that? It's okay to put up your hand now. Okay? There's a lot of them out there. And it is an easier way and it is successful. But why do I go through the efforts of doing one-on-ones weekly and personal development strategies and take people to sessions like these and get to know them and their families? And it comes from her. So my mom and dad, the second part of the story is understand what you're going through and servant leadership. My mom and dad retired from Nova Scotia. They went back to their little hometown in Stellarton, Nova Scotia, 49 years later, after they got married. They sat on the steps of the church they got married at, and mom looked at dad that morning and said, you know, we've done it. We've raised 5 kids with limited jail time. Limited. A couple drunk tanks, it's no big deal. And they've turned out pretty good, and we have great grandkids. And you know what? We were simple people from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, Halifax, Nova Scotia, New Glasgow, Pictou. They moved around, and here we are. And dad said, you're right, Mary, we did it. They leave the church, it's a kilometer away, walk to their new house, first day. Mom sits on the couch and says, Wayne, can you get me a glass of water? Not feeling too good. And mom dies of a massive heart attack that morning. So I, being the youngest, we all love mom, probably a little closer than the other boys, I can say. Just because I spent more time with her as the youngest and the other kids were growing up and moved out. It was hard. It was hard. I said to dad, I didn't get to say goodbye. Like, that's killing me. If any of you have lost a parent or parents, not being able to say goodbye and thank them for what they've done for you is tough. And I'll never forget, he looked me right in the face and he said, you didn't have to say thank you. The way you've lived your life, and knowing her involvement in it, you'd never have to say thank you a day. She knew how much she meant to you, and therefore she knew how much you meant to her, and therefore how much she meant to you, because my mom was a servant leader, spent her life putting others first. Her joy was to see what we did with our lives and careers. And it's the same thing in your working culture that I'm going to share with today, okay? So those are the longest first slide of a presentation you're going to ever hear, and probably more than you need to see a grown man cry. So if we can move on to the next slide. It all started with tight pants. Can we play the video, please?
Everybody's talking about my tight pants. I got my tight pants. I got my tight pants on. Everybody's looking at my tight pants. I got my tight pants. I got my tight pants on. I'm the only guy in town wearing tight pants. I got my tight pants. I got my tight pants on. I'm the guy wearing tight pants. I got my tight pants. I got my tight pants on. Everyone in town loves my tight pants. I got my tight pants. I got my tight pants on. People wouldn't lie about my tight pants. I got my tight pants, I got my tight pants on. I can dance real low, I can dance real high. I can sleep real well, know that I'm the only guy that's wearing tight pants, and I'm the only one. Hey, slow down there, old friend. You say people are talking about your tight pants down at the local Five and Dime? Well, I find that hard to believe, since I live in this town and everyone I know is talking about my tight pants.
Well, I talked to Mayor Grimble the other day, and he declared my pants the tightest in the land.
Now you listen to me, you sick son of a bitch. I don't know who you are or where you came from, but I'm the only one in this town that can wear tight pants. You got it? I will end you. Don't wake the snake. You drinking my sake, Kimosabi?
Rock and roll, Ayatollah. I guess I'll find a new town.
Everybody's talking about my tight pants. Tight pants. I got my tight pants on.
What the heck does that have to do with anything I'm talking about today? How's he going to tie that in? I just love that video. So no, I'm teasing. There is a tie-in. When you do what you love internally, sometimes people look outside and say, oh, I don't respect that, or why do you do that, or why do you stay grounded in what you love? And developing other people is what you love to do, do it. When I worked at McDonald's, I took a ton of, remember, McDonald's uniforms are pretty freaking cool now. Right? You go into the McDonald's, they've completely changed the environment. It's no longer about a customer, it's about guest services. I heard a guy by the name of Doug Fry from McDonald's speak at a conference, and what they're doing is tremendous. Their employees are dressed with respect, they're nicer uniforms, but in my days, there were those striped ones. Remember those with the visor? I remember I'm talking to YBILD, you're all going, what's he talking about? And these tight gray pants, and my buddies ragged on me, non-stop. But I was a competitive guy in tight pants. I wanted to be the best guy in tight pants like Will Ferrell, and anybody who got in my way, get out of it. I'm going to be the best employee at McDonald's because I'm going to give back to the people that are investing in me in my first job. And my friends, to this day, bug me about McDonald's. It's worked okay for me. So if you love what you do, throw yourself into it. If you want to grow your career and develop, throw yourself into it. You only have one person to impress. It's yourself, right? So, McDonald's, training, development. There was some social stigma, as I mentioned. The magic of 45-degree spatulas. So I mentioned it a little earlier. McDonald's, there's a sheet, or there was at the time. Now it's probably on an iPad or something, but there was a sheet with a checklist. And you did every station, and you couldn't move on to the next station till a bunch of shifts doing that station. There was a certain way to put salt on the fries, certain degree of the fryer, certain angle you held to get rid of the oil. On the spatulas, 45 degrees, a certain way you seared the meat, the way you put the condiments on in what order, and everything was drilled down, and they really had a focus on making everybody successful at their job. McDonald's is great at that. As you grow your career and you lead people, give people that support and development. Having said that, the moral of the story is willingness versus knowledge. Most of the kids who don't do well at McDonald's is they think it's below them. It's not cool. This is just a part-time job. But if you're willing and you'll accept help and you'll accept training and development, you'll grow your career. The gap is only knowledge. If you are willing to do whatever it takes, the only gap you have is knowledge. And that's a theme you're going to see throughout this entire presentation, and you'll see through my career story to date. So as I moved on from McDonald's, sorry, just to give a little background on McDonald's, so I started at a station, then did the cash, and then for those of you who worked at McDonald's know the terminology of swing manager, which is when you're part-time and you get the blue shirt and the clip-on tie. Actually, no, it wasn't clip-on, it was a real tie. And you get free food. I used to eat at McDonald's 3 times a day, 5 times a week. Then I joined a gym. And that's when they had pizza at McDonald's. That's how far back I'm going. But so I grew, but I knew I wanted something else. I wanted more. I wasn't being challenged enough. And so there was a sports store in the mall called, everyone familiar with Champ Sports? Okay, in Quebec it was called Champion Sport. Because of the French sign laws, it couldn't be called Champs at the time. It was Champion. It was right beside the McDonald's. And man, I wanted to sell shoes in there. Because I saw those guys in the bar and they were buying drinks. And then I found out they made 6% commission on their sales and I had to have it. And so I transferred over, bugged the manager enough, got in there. And where did I start wanting to get on that sales floor? Where do you think they put me? In the stock room. Shifting effing shoes and folding effing t-shirts. And nobody ever saw me. But what I did was I found out what the expectations of the role were, found out what was going to make my manager happy, and did that work every single day. And again, I lucked into a good leader who said, okay, here you go, kid, here's your chance on the sales floor. And then I was given KPIs. Put up your hand if you know what a KPI is. Okay, good. I love the honesty in the room. KPI is a key performance indicator. Okay, so there's your financial metric that you're trying to hit, your goals, your sales, your revenue, your margins, etc. And then there's KPIs that measure what leads into those bigger numbers. And below that, which is where you should be spending your time as a leader, are behaviors. But what you'll normally hear business leaders talk about are KPIs, profitability. Okay, but what causes those? Those are behaviors. Where do you train those? So this was my first exposure into KPIs, and more importantly, behaviors and tools. So the manager would sit down with me and say, here's what you need to sell shoes, your numbers are off, here are your 4 KPIs, they're average transactions, item per sale, accessories at the time, and conversion rate. Okay, 4 key stats. Anyone know those stats? Kinda? Okay. But he started to teach me about the behavior that caused those. And so as you lead or you're being led, focus on behaviors. Focus on learning the stuff that's going to make a difference and understanding from your leader's perspective what success looks like. And then when you lead, be crystal clear on the numbers just being an indicator. The behaviors are what cause growth. If you follow that direction, it's the longer route to success, but it's the happier one, which involves less turnover. So the McCrea Factor. And so I met a gentleman by the name of McCrea, who's still a friend of mine today. He was my first district manager at Champ Sports. And I felt like this guy was my dad. Like I really did. This guy, he was a district manager, came into my store once every 6 weeks. I wasn't even the store manager. I was a part-time sales guy at the time. And he'd sit me down and he'd say, Marky boy. He was a Habs fan as well. Can I get a Habs fans? Yeah. Wait till I tell you I worked for the Leafs for 5 years. And he sat me down. He said, Marky boy, what's going on with the Habs? Ah, well, you know, Patrick Roy, what do you say, right? This was back when we won cups. And he was a guy from Waterdown, Ontario. And he says, good, and we have a little chit-chat. And he goes, you know, how's the family? And how's the Deux Cinquante? And the Deux Cinquante was a little dive bar we had in St. Bruno, Quebec, which was awesome. I've got some stories I'm not allowed to share on camera. So, great time in my life. But Mark knew about my life was the point. And then he'd say, how's the business, man? Like, what are you selling other than Air Jordans? Because you guys sell a ton of Air Jordans, but I'm not seeing your footwear categories move in cross trainers. What's going on there? Like, here's a district manager asking a part-time employee what I think. And that was awesome. And then he actually used that feedback to create action. Well, that has, to this day, it was 25 years ago, inspired me to this moment. To make me feel valued. And to make sure I transfer that in my career as we move forward. So if you do lead people right now, who can you engage? You'll hear a lot of things about, oh, engagement is so critical, and you need to have the most engaged workspace, and people loving you, and build a slide, and have Friday drinks, and woo! Involvement creates engagement. It creates inspiration and motivation. Involvement at every level of the organization creates that engagement. At Fusion Homes, we've just been, last year, we're awarded one of Canada's top 10 most admired work cultures. This year, just went public last week, one of Canada's best small and medium employers. And we also hit the Fortune 500 for the first time in our organization's history. And that didn't come from me, and that didn't come from Lee, our owner, and that didn't come from our VP of construction, Those words came from our team. And I'm not just saying that because the camera's rolling, but if this gets delayed, it's sincere. Like, we engage the team. They make decisions. We respond to it. Why wouldn't you? They're on the front lines. Who picks up a phone when a customer's pissed off on my customer service team? Me? No. I just get to go do the speeches. Tell everybody how great we are. They're the ones that deal with the customer. And if I get 8 of my team members saying, Mark, we got a problem with this supplier and we got to find a solution, I got to fix it. Now, if I turn that feedback off, what happens to that level of engagement? It goes away. So Mark McCrea taught me that at a very young age, and I've tried to carry that through. When I was at MLSE, and I'm going to fast forward to that story shortly, I worked for a CEO by the name of Richard Petty. And for those who are Leafs and Raptors fans, you won't give Richard credit, because what you don't see is the behind-the-scenes development that he did with the team and how he built the business, because the team's always sucked, right? Sports fans here, hands up. Hands up. Pretend you're a sports fan. Okay. If you remember the Richard Petty years, they were the Vince Carter gets traded years. They were the Rob Babcock's our GM. They were the John Ferguson Jr. years. And the on-field product was terrible. But what Richard did really well was Toronto FC was in Toronto because of Richard Petty. Maple Leaf Square is what it is because of Richard Petty. The development of the employees who've moved on to greater careers or grown within the organization are because of Richard Petty. And what Richard Petty did was teach me to appreciate every single moment as I developed those teams. And so tying Mark and Richard together here just for a moment, little did I know my Champ Sports days would be a really cool moment in my Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment days. So I went at, when I was working at Champ Sports, remember Shaquille O'Neal when he was playing in Orlando? Anybody? Okay, nods even if you don't. Okay, good, great. Shaquille O'Neal had a size 19.5 shoe. And it was by Reebok at the time, and it was demoed in all the sports stores, if any of you remember that. This huge friggin' shoe. And I remember thinking, there's no way that man wears that shoe. I remember talking to customers about it, like, oh, it's just a promotional thing, but it's a great shoe, and here's the benefits and features, but no, there's no way he's a 19.5. Well, fast forward, Air Canada Center, I start there, and I'm going to go through it, consumer products, do retail, start to grow, start to run the buildings, open BMO Field. Then I'm the senior director of the Air Canada Center, and Toronto's playing Miami. I'm walking down the back corridor between the visitors' dressing room, walking down to the court, and this big, huge man puts his arm on my shoulder. What do you do here, man? Oh, I kind of run the building. Well, that's a good job. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, keep it up. All right. And off he goes to the court of the game, and I'm watching his feet going, oh, yeah, man, he does have 19.5. Moral of the story is, if you just stay focused on developing and learning and teaching other people, who knows where life can take you. I went from selling a shoe I didn't believe in to meeting the man and walking him down to a basketball court. And then we partied all, no, that never happened. So this is one that I really want to talk about. Has everybody's got a phone? How many are with Bell? Put up your hand. How many are with Rogers? How many are you with Telus? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7 smart people in the room. I'm just teasing. I ran Telus Mobility's corporate stores for a little while as an area manager, and I ran into a regional manager by the name of Lisa Larder that has her own business today. And if you're into personal development, follow Lisa. Lisa Larder, follow her on LinkedIn. And Jackie Fu, who now I think is the COO of The Source. Anyways, and they introduced me to servant leadership. And I'm going to let a gentleman by the name of John Harbaugh introduce you to the concept just before you press the video. Again, these 6 degrees of separation story. My brother plays football, played football. He played at McGill University for 2 years. They won a Vanier Cup, the only time they ever won one. He was a kicker and won it on the last second field goal in the Atlantic Bowl against St. Mary's. I'm clearly proud of him. 2 years before that, he played at a place called Western Michigan University. He was redshirted his first year as a freshman, which basically means you don't play. It gives you another year of eligibility. In that second year, it didn't work out. He wasn't playing, came back to Canada, go to McGill and get his degree, won a Vanier Cup. But John Harbaugh was his quarterback at Western Michigan, who was a coach of the Baltimore Ravens. His brother Jim is now the coach at Michigan and was the quarterback at Michigan at the time, but his dad Jack was my brother's football coach. My brothers had dinner with all 3 Harbaughs in their family home. A little alone, I'm looking for servant leadership, and I find John Harbaugh, and I think, wow, the world's colliding here, but what a cool thing about servant leadership and how it applies to football and how I'll bring it back to business. So if we can play that video now, that'd be great.
Leadership is a big proposition, but it's a pretty simple idea, right? Do whatever you can to help others be their best and see where that takes you. You know, and it really shouldn't be about where it takes you, it's where it takes us. You know, what do we have a chance to accomplish together? Can we build something together that is special and has a chance to last? Can we make it about something bigger than just maybe the bottom line even, although we have to win games. And we tell our guys all the time, you know, our mission is to win the next game. Our mission is to build a dynasty. You know, I think that's business and sports and whatever, you have a mission. But within that, maybe the broader mission is, you know, how we are around one another. And if we can help each other accomplish what we all need to accomplish together, we have a chance to be great. It's tough to decide where to spend your time and who to spend your time with. For me, it's somewhat orderly because we have coordinators, we have coaches, and we have quarterbacks, and I can kind of pick my spots, but it kind of comes to you every day more than that. You know, we have a lot of hours in the day. A lot of hours in the day where sometimes it's easier to kind of sit back and hide in your office, maybe get involved in some paperwork or something like that, when really what you need to be doing as a leader is you need to be going out and finding who you need to be helping do what they do and try to help them do it well. So it kind of comes to you. You know, where are we not playing as well? Is our defensive line struggling against the run a little bit? Has someone had a personal problem? You know, where do you need to inject yourself and be involved with people? But one of the things I found to be most powerful is something that my boss taught me. If I'm not sure what to ask or not sure what to say, there are 4 powerful words. What do you think? So as I work my way around the building and I get into a conversation with somebody, I'm not exactly sure how to approach them. I can always say, how's it going? And what do you think? You know, how can we be better? You know, how can you make us better? Have you got a good idea? You know, are you happy? You know, are we at our best? It's pretty amazing what people will tell you when you give them that opportunity. The first thing is coming to the realization that you don't drive the car all the time. You know, you've got to be smart, you've got to be tough, you've got to make good decisions and use good judgment, all those kind of things. But you've got to have faith, trust, belief. You've got to empower the people around you. You've got to believe in them. You know, trust but verify, absolutely. Be on top of things without question. But you put a group of people around you that you really love and you really care about, it's pretty easy to serve them. You know, it's pretty easy to want to see them at their best. And you've got to check your own heart. I think when we get into the day-to-day conversations, and sometimes we all fall down, but you get into that day-to-day conversations, you've got to ask yourself, hey, where's my heart on this? You know, where am I coming from on this? Do I really care about this person? And if you really want them to feel like you care about them, the best way to do that is to actually care about them.
No, what I learned from Jackie Fu and Lisa Larder on servant leadership was that personality inspires, but it does not teach. If you want to tweet that and quote it to me. Sorry, I'm just talking to the camera. Everybody will be okay. I thought of that one all night. No, personality inspires, but it doesn't teach. And servant leadership is about being out there and seeing the opportunities live in the moment to help someone develop and grow their career. And if you're willing to accept that because you work for that type of leader, that's how you're going to rapidly grow your career. So if you're in the hands of someone you trust and that spends time with you, cares about you, knows about you, gives you tough feedback, but that seems to help you grow every time, that's a learning environment that you need. And then on the flip side, when you have teams that report into you, you owe them the same. Has anyone heard about MBWA? It's a great rap group from Compton. That's okay, NWA, fine. I'm aging again. MBWA is managing by walking around. How many of you run teams? Good, a lot of you in the room. During a week, how often do you get out of your desk and sit down beside them and watch them work? Okay, couple hands, that's great. Could you be doing it more? Yeah? There is not one thing you'll do more important as a leader than to get out and observe your team perform, provide them recognition and development opportunities. Think about it, it's simple. If you want a team to be successful and grow your business, they have to know what they're doing. Well, if you're in that role, it's because somewhere along the line, functionally, you showed you could do it too. How are you passing that skill on? That's the core of servant leadership. And you've got to be able to do it because similar like to the situations where I've been lucky enough to have great leaders, is because you know at the end of the day, the business will take care of itself. Your career will take care of itself if you spend all your time on other people. And because it's important to you to go home, put your head on the pillow and go, gave it an honest effort today. And maybe we didn't get the measurable today, but if I keep focusing on that behavior, that person's going to be successful. And they might not work for me forever. They may leave my company and go somewhere else and still be okay that you did your job. I've lost a lot of great people. A lot. They're those same people that come back into my LinkedIn profile and write me a recommendation. That is not a wasted effort. I help them be successful in life. That's what my job is. That's what your job is as leaders. And so I've been lucky because I've been willing to accept that knowledge of servant leaders. Okay? I should probably keep my clicker here. And the TPOV that you see at the bottom of each slide is just a reminder to me to talk about the teachable point of view. Has anyone read Noel Tishi's Leadership Engine? No? There's no Starbucks cards if you put up your hands yes or anything like that. Noel Tishi, if you get a chance and you read books, read the Leadership Engine. He talks about how adults like to learn. And we like to learn through stories. And what's the teachable point of view that I have where I can share a story with you that you can replicate? And so my teachable point of view on this, on Lisa and Jackie, was great servant leadership, great knowledge that I was getting, but I was willing to open up and accept that feedback, because it's not always easy as you're growing your career to hear you're not good at something. Kind of sucks, right? Your boss sits you down and says, even in the nicest way, you know, I love everything you're doing for me, but I gave you that project last week, and let me tell you where you fell down a little bit, and I need you to improve. Right? It's terrible. But how do you get better if they don't do that? And if you can trust that, that type of leader will also say 2 weeks from now, when you give them a new opportunity, sit you down and say, you know, we talked about that 2 weeks ago at your one-on-one. Man, did you kill it. Let me tell you specifically the behaviors you performed that I loved and the value it provides for you and our company. And you're lifted back up. But you got to be willing to meet the leader halfway to accept that knowledge. The dream job, working for Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment as a Habs fan. Woo! I tried to get Red into the uniform for like 5 years and they wouldn't do it. I don't know why. I'm going to give you my best memory of BMO Field, which was totally unexpected. And it kind of was, Toronto FC fans? Yes? Hands up. We're in the playoffs. Like, hi. Okay? Go back to when BMO Field opened. I was the first employee of the stadium. I hired all the staff, worked with PCL on the construction of the building. RFP'd for everything because it was owned by the city and we were managing the facility and owned the team, so I had to RFP for garbage bags. Like, it was nuts if it hit a certain threshold. Well, $3,000 and above, you have to follow this step. But yeah, but it's a stadium, there's lots of garbage bags. Oh, you 3 vendors. Oh, couldn't hear that on the camera because I said, but we did it. And we built the team and we learned. But this is my best memory, and I called it. My peer was a guy by the name of Paul Byrne who did the business development for the team. And Paul wanted to hand out these seat cushions. And we were sitting in my office having a beer because we were sponsored by Carlsberg, and they filled my office up every night with beer, which was awesome. And I'm like, dude, this is not going to go well, man. Like, we haven't scored. We've been a bunch of games on the road. It's our first game at home. If they score, these seat cushions are going on the field. Yeah, we'll figure it out. No one's going to throw them away. They're awesome. They're souvenirs. Well, let's play the video. I was at Telus Mobility at Devonshire Mall in Windsor, and I got a phone call from a recruiter, and I just told you how much I love Telus and the people I was working for, and they're like, you know, we've heard about you and we'd like you to consider an opportunity. And I'm like, well, so I'm kind of doing okay, but thanks. He goes, well, it's a professional sports franchise. I go, whoa, okay, hold on, I got to listen to this one. And they're like, well, I was like, who is it? And they're like, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I'm like, still sports, maybe I'll. So begrudgingly, I went in and I met with my boss, by the guy named Bob Hunter, who's still there today, and Richard Petty, the CEO, and they look at my resume and Concordia University, and they're like, you didn't finish, but are you from Montreal? I'm like, yeah. Are you a Habs fan? Said I wasn't going to lie. I'm a diehard Habs fan. Ooh. Richard says, you going to be able to park that love for a few years? Yeah, okay, I'll park that love for a few years. But I will tell you, every time Toronto played Montreal, underneath my suit was a Carey Price t-shirt or a Patrick Waugh t-shirt, depending on when it was. No. I was very loyal, and I actually grew a big love for Toronto Maple Leaf fans, as painful as that for me to admit. Because, sidebar, from a loyalty perspective, there's nothing more loyal than a Toronto Maple Leafs fan or a Chicago Cubs fan or a Boston Red Sox fan, and you truly want those people to win. Like, I remember thinking, okay, Montreal's out. If Toronto, oh wait, they weren't in the playoffs, so never mind, I never thought that. But if they were, but anyway, so I got that call, took the opportunity. It was in retail, which I had background in, and it was running their consumer products division. So Toronto Raptors, Toronto Maple Leafs at the time. For those who go to the games a lot, there was a place called Center Sports before it came Real Sports, so it was that stuff. The concert business that came in every night, which was a big, huge bonanza of counting in inventory and getting it out and splitting it with the promoter. The online business, all of that fun stuff from a retail perspective. But again, I was willing and found a leader who was willing to give me the knowledge, this gentleman by the name of Bob Hunter. I quickly realized I want to do this. I want to run the Air Canada Centre. What's security? What's ushers? What's making ice? It's got to be a fridge or something. We can figure that out later. And putting a basketball court down and setting up concerts. And I know they put stuff on the rig stuff. Oh, I can figure that out. I want it, boss. And he looked at me and goes, are you sure? And I said, I absolutely do in my development meetings with him. He goes, okay, well, this is going to be a journey. And he goes, the first thing you do is you need to learn each of these businesses as a functional expert. And you need to do it on your own time. Because I'm paying you to do your job and generate t-shirt sales and jersey sales. If you're in for that, I'll get you shadowing opportunities. So I met with the first person I dealt with was a lady by the name of Patty Ann Tarleton. She's now the COO of Ticketmaster, and she was our VP of live events. And I learned the production side, which meant I sat there till 4 in the morning while the guys were up on the catwalk and rigging up the speakers and what that all meant and how IATSE worked and the unions and the laborers and how we scheduled calls and what you could and couldn't do and what a minimum call was and who could do what work and safety and all those things, and I started to learn that functionality. Then I learned how do you book a concert with Live Nation, AEG, and all these companies, and started to learn that. And then he said, okay, great, you're starting to get an understanding of the concert business. Now you got to go learn food and beverage. Oof, food and beverage. He goes, yeah, and we do about $30 to $40 a night in the building per caps. Per caps. Oh yeah, per capita. So like on average, the 20,000 people in the building are spending between $30 and $40 each. That's a lot. And that was in 2 intermissions and a little bit before and after. And that was a whole other level of customer service. So I started to learn that. And then there was security in the AGCO and protecting your liquor license, which I failed at miserably because I was the only guy to lose a liquor license at BMO Field under my watch. Thank you very much. And I didn't even have that much to drink. No, I'm just kidding. Kind of. So then the maintenance side of the building and building hockey ice. And the level of certification and training that goes into the guys who build your ice for that fantastic hockey team that you have now, that you didn't have for 10 years, but the ice was great. But I don't want to talk about that right now. But yeah, the Leafs are pretty fantastic right now, I can admit that. But anyways, again, development opportunity and learned, and then the first opportunity came along and he said, are you ready to do this? You have to trust not only your leader, you have to trust yourself. And I said, what do you mean? You're not going anywhere, Bob. We just bought a soccer franchise. And we got to build a stadium. Do you want to do it? Like build a stadium? What do you mean build a stadium? I can't put a nail in a wall. No, you're going to build a stadium and I'll walk you through it and we're working with PCL and you'll go in the weekly meetings and it'll have to be aligned with what we want for the customers and you'll do change orders and FF&E and order FF&E, and I'm like, oh, FF&E. He goes, oh, it's fixtures, furnitures, and equipment. And I said, okay, what's the budget for that? It's about $9 million. Okay. But I learned all these things because he held my hand and took me through it. And then I was able to develop a next in line, and that gentleman took over the building when I left. And then his next in line, she took over the building when he left. And so willing, learning, knowledge, and you pass it on. And that's kind of the story of BMO Field. And I was there for 5 years and then got recruited away to be vice president of sales and marketing for a printing company that has 70 stores across Canada. If you've ever used TPH or the printing house before, I was the VP of sales and marketing there, working for the O'Born family for about 5 years. That leads me to my last slide, or second to last slide. I'm going to skip over the life at TPH because I didn't enjoy it very much. and that's not a joke. Fusion Homes calls, well actually Knightsbridge calls. And the big bold is my answer when the recruiter asked me about going to work for a home builder. I can't put a nail in the wall. Why me? I'm not interested. Hung up the phone. It wasn't rude, but hung up the phone. She called me the next day. We'd really like you to consider it. We think you'd be a good leadership fit. This isn't about just building homes. This is about growing a company. The owner's aligned with the type of leader you are. You should really meet with him. No, sorry, I'm not comfortable. I don't have a passion for the industry. I don't know if my skill set is transferable into that world. Okay. Third day, the recruiter calls again and says, come meet with Jock. He's our lead partner here at Knightsbridge. Just meet him because you never know where the future is going to take you. Again, willing, begrudgingly willing. Open up that opportunity. We hit it off. He tells me about Lee Piccoli, this young guy in Guelph, and that you at least got to meet him. So I meet Lee. I go all the way out to Guelph. I'm living in Burlington at the time. My first question is, where's Guelph? How do I get there? We meet at 6 in the morning because I want to be respectful to my current employer. I don't think it's fair to interview on their time. And I meet Lee and his wife, Alicia. And I come home and I tell my wife I'm taking the job. She says, but they haven't offered you anything. You're a pretty shitty negotiator. It doesn't matter what they offer me. I'm deeming it's acceptable. I'm taking the job because that's the leader that I've talked about all through this presentation. And Lee's building a company full of great employees that happens to build homes. So when you hear about us winning 6 Terrion Awards in the last 9 years, and you hear about customer service focus, that all comes from the back end of developing employees and being willing to accept the feedback as a group of staff and knowledge being transferred from the leader to the team. So, how does a company grow its revenue by 400% in 3 years? We've gone from a $50 million company to a $220 million company over the last 4 years. You overcharge for your houses. No. You go through a lot of pain. And you make a lot of mistakes. And as proud as I am to say we won 6 Terrion Awards over the last 9 years, it's very different than saying we haven't won 1 in 3. But it is a fact, we haven't won 1 in 3. Because we've grown 4 times over and our systems and our processes haven't been able to keep up. But here's what's cool about this company is that we're coming back. Our attitude towards the customer has not changed. Our production model may have, but we still go back to that customer and fix their house even if it takes longer. That core value has not changed because we don't want to put our people in a situation where they look bad in front of the customer for too long. And so that's a driving factor of ours. And then the other way you do that is you take your whole company to Vegas for 5 days. Our owner, after our biggest year, when we doubled in size the first time, gave us a challenge that if we hit that target, he'd take us all to Vegas. And so he flew all of us out there for 5 days, 120 employees. I remember some of it. I remember having to go back to accounts payable and giving my receipts in. And Lee called me on the Saturday and he's like, listen, dude, I'm with some of the staff over here. We're all going to meet at Hakkasan. Get them in. I'm like, okay, but it's like $30 a cover. And I got like 40 people here. He's like, it's $1,200. Get them in. This is a weekend for all of us to have fun. I'm like, okay. So I had a $1,200 receipt on my corporate card. And so I'm passing all my receipts off from stuff like that. And there's this one for like $700 at 4 in the morning. And the AP goes, take that back. And I'm like, why? Well, it's not on your corporate card. It's on your personal card. Why are you submitting it? Ooh, bad luck at 3-card poker, obviously. And so they actually didn't owe me money. It was my own cash. And then conversely, I used the corporate card in the bank machine at about 2:30 for another $400, which I probably lost on the tables. And I'm like, okay, I kind of owe the company that money. But a great trip had by all, I think. So if I can wrap up with this, what a way than to end with a Vegas story. Few takeaways, and then I'll end up and probably have a little bit of time for questions.